Imagine the center of the universe, like the literal source of all light, life, and authority being so toxically overbearing that his own wife creates a shadow clone of herself just to escape him.
Right. It's
I
wild.
mean, imagine him being so blinded by his own brilliance that he doesn't even notice he's been married to a two-dimensional absence of light for years.
Yeah, just completely oblivious.
Today, we aren't looking at the sun as just, a massive ball of burning hydrogen and helium gas. We are looking at him as a deeply flawed, incredibly complex protagonist.
It's basically the ultimate unmasking of a celestial body. We are taking the most ubiquitous force in our sky and, well, breaking down its psychology.
Exactly. So, welcome to you, our listener, to this custom curated deep dive. We are thrilled to have you with us as like the third mind at this table.
Oh, absolutely.
Our focus today is the complete, totally fascinating mythological origin and life story of the sun. And our source material for this journey is this incredibly rich text titled The Celestial Delivery Boy Transit.
Such a great title, by the way.
It really is. And this text explores how ancient Puranic legends, our global heritage and deep mythology, were actually crafted by ancient sages to explain really complex planetary behaviors.
It is a remarkable way of looking at information, honestly. And it requires a bit of a perspective shift from how we normally consume data today.
Right.
The text outlines how our forefathers, these ancient sages, devised this incredibly unique multi-tiered education system. They wanted to ensure that knowledge didn't just survive, but was actually understood by different cross-sections of society.
I found this concept staggering because today, if we want to learn, say, quantum mechanics, we read a dense textbook that only a tiny fraction of the population can even comprehend.
Yeah, and most people just zone out.
Exactly. But the sages approached it differently.
Very differently. At the base level, they use simple, engaging stories, like the Panchatantra, which features talking animals, to teach basic morals and practical wisdom to the masses. It was highly accessible.
Kind of like Aesop's fables.
Exactly like that. Then, for the householders, the people running society and raising families, they offered massive, sweeping epics, like the Ramayana and the Mahabharata.
Right, the really heavy, dramatic stuff.
Yeah. These were designed to teach duty, complex ethics, and how to raise worthy children amidst all this moral ambiguity.
But then you reach the top tier for the scholars, the deep thinkers, the people trying to decode the very mechanics of reality. They created the Puranas and the Upanishads.
The core philosophical texts.
And their genius was that they took these massive cosmic truths, the intricacies of philosophy, logic, the rationale of really abstruse scientific ideas, and they wrapped them in narrative.
They did.
They basically disguised quantum mechanics and behavioral psychology as family drama.
Well, I wouldn't say disguise, actually. I'd frame it more like they encapsulated it. It's an oral zip file.
Oh, an oral zip file. I love that.
Think about it. A mathematical formula can be forgotten or corrupted over thousands of years of oral transmission, right?
Sure. Someone forgets a decimal point and the whole thing is ruined.
Exactly. But a juicy story about a husband whose ego is so big it literally burns his wife, that survives.
People love gossip.
Right. The drama is a protective shell for the data.
An oral zip file, that is just brilliant. The drama ensures the data survives the centuries, and that is exactly our mission with you today. We are going to unzip the file on the sun.
We really are.
We will track his epic journey from being a divine drafted warrior to a deeply problematic partner and ultimately to a solitary, sort of melancholy cosmic ruler.
And we're going to see how every single one of his personal dramas maps directly onto how the sun operates in astrology, astronomy, and human psychology.
Let me just set the tone right now for you listening. This is not going to be a dry astronomy lesson.
Not even close.
We are talking about a cosmic soap opera here. We've got shadow clones, epic battles with demons, literal cosmic tantrums where the universe almost burns down.
Divine makeovers.
Yes, divine makeovers. But all of this is designed to give you profound aha moments about what it means to hold authority, the true cost of leadership, and well, the absolute necessity of self-awareness.
Because if the sun, the literal center of our solar system, has to learn how to manage his own toxic traits, I think there is hope for the rest of us.
Fair point. Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the origin story because the sun wasn't always just the sun as we know him in this specific mythological context.
Right, he had a prior form.
He had to be brought into the fold to basically save the universe.
Yeah. To understand the sun's character, we really have to look at his pedigree. The source text lays out the cosmic family tree very clearly.
So we start at the absolute top with the creator, Brahma. Brahma has a son named Marichi, who was a mind-born son, meaning he was created from Brahma's sheer thought, not biological reproduction.
A manifestation of pure will, essentially.
Exactly. Marichi then fathered the great sage Kashyap. Now, Kashyap marries a woman named Aditi, and Aditi is incredibly important because she is the mother of the gods, the Devas.
Right. The entities meant to represent light, administration, and cosmic order.
Okay, so Kashyap and Aditi have these children, the gods, who are supposed to be running the cosmos, maintaining the balance, doing all the things divine administrators are supposed to do.
That's their job description.
But here is the inciting incident, like the spark that lights the whole fire. The gods are failing spectacularly.
It's a total administrative collapse.
In fact, they're getting absolutely crushed. They are humiliatingly defeated by the demons, the asuras. They lose all their power, they're violently evicted from their kingdom, and they fall into what the text brilliantly describes as a self-pitying stupor.
Self-pitying stupor. It paints such a vivid, almost pathetic picture, doesn't it?
It really does. It's kind of sad.
You have these divine beings, entities endowed with incredible potential, and they are basically sulking in the cosmic basement, completely paralyzed by their own defeat.
They've completely lost their agency. They are walled off in their own victimhood. I mean, what does a self-pitying stupor actually look like on a cosmic scale?
Psychologically, it's organizational paralysis. It's when the leadership of an institution is so traumatized by a failure that they stop making decisions entirely.
Like a company that just gives up.
Yeah. They sit around lamenting how unfair the demons were instead of strategizing how to take the kingdom back. They become entirely reactive.
So Aditi, the mother of the gods, looks at her sons and realizes they cannot fix this themselves. The current leadership is fundamentally broken. They need an intervention.
They need an outside hire.
Yes, they need a ringer. So she prays to the sun, this pre-existing absolute cosmic principle of light. She requests him to literally localize himself, to be born as her son with her husband sage Kashyap, so that he can fight the demons and get the gods their due back.
And the sun agrees. He descends into form. He is born as Aditya, which translates literally to the son of Aditi.
So Aditya arrives, and he is exactly what the doctor ordered. The text says he was steadfast in battle. He comprehensively defeats the demons, completely routs them, gets the kingdom back for the gods, and then...
And this next part is key.
Right, this is the crucial part to me. He doesn't just hand the keys back to his sulking brothers and say, good luck, guys. He actually educates them in the art of administering and defending a kingdom. He is the ultimate fixer.
He brings discipline to a group that had completely abandoned it. He is a winning warrior. But more importantly, he is an organizer. He reestablishes the architecture of reality.
Now here is where the text gets really interesting, where it demands we look a little closer. The authors provide an astrological analysis of this specific origin myth, and they use a fascinating phrase.
Yes, a very specific descriptor.
The sages codified this by stating, the sun is not a malefic, but is cruel.
That is one of the most critical distinctions in Vedic astrology, and honestly in understanding the psychology of authority.
I was trying to wrap my head around this difference because in everyday English we use malefic and cruel interchangeably, like they both just mean bad.
Right, they sound synonymous.
So I created a bit of an analogy. Think of the sun like one of those high-priced, incredibly strict corporate fixers, or maybe a wartime military general.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Imagine a massive company is completely failing. The friendly CEO who wanted everyone to like him has run the company into the ground. The stock is tanking. Competitors are circling.
The corporate equivalent of being defeated by demons, essentially.
Right. The company is in a self-pitying stupor. So the board of directors brings in this legendary fixer. This person comes in, and they don't care about your feelings.
They don't care about team-building retreats.
Exactly. They don't care about the ping-pong table in the break room. They fire the underperformers. They slash budgets. They demand absolute, rigid discipline, and they expect people to work through the weekend.
It's a shock to the system.
To the employees on the ground, this person seems incredibly mean. They seem cruel, but their cruelty isn't because they enjoy causing pain. It's not malicious. It's because the company is literally dying, and only an uncompromising, rigid structure will save it.
Yes.
So the cruelty is essentially a mechanism for justice.
Well, I'd push back slightly on the word justice. It's a mechanism for order.
Order. Okay, what's the nuance there?
Justice implies fairness, right? It implies that everyone's perspective is considered and weighed. But cosmic order, or saving a dying company, sometimes just requires a heavy, ruthless hand, regardless of who thinks it's fair.
That makes sense.
A malefic force causes harm for the sake of harm. It operates out of ignorance, greed, or a desire to destroy. Its ultimate goal is chaos and suffering. But cruelty, in the context of the sun, is highly purposeful.
Purposeful cruelty. Wow.
The text explicitly says the sun needs to be cruel to suppress evildoers. He is born with a mission to annihilate corruption and to give the weak but righteous gods their lost glory back.
So it's the difference between a surgeon cutting you open to remove a tumor versus someone just stabbing you in an alley.
That's a perfect analogy.
Both cause intense pain. Both are technically cruel to the tissue of your body, but one is malefic and one is restorative.
Exactly. If you're going to fight demons, if you're going to root out deep systemic corruption, you cannot do it with polite suggestions. You cannot do it with compromise. You need a force that is unyielding.
Yeah, you need the scalpel.
And the text points out his lineage again for a reason. Brahma, the creator, is his grandfather in this incarnation. He is not born from darkness. He is born from the highest order to restore that order.
And restoring order hurts. To those gods who had grown comfortable in their self-pitying stupor, the sun's rigid discipline probably felt like a punishment.
It absolutely burns. The sun has to knock some sense into his brothers. That requires a heavy hand. This establishes his core archetypal identity, not as a villain, but as an incredibly able administrator, a winning commander, and fundamentally a giver of boons who operates strictly on tough love.
Tough love on a cosmic scale.
Exactly. He puts you under the magnifying glass.
He tests you. Yes, he puts you under the magnifying glass to see if you will catch fire or if you will shine. That makes so much sense.
It's the ultimate trial by fire.
So we've established the sun's professional life, so to speak. He is the ultimate uncompromising wartime general.
He's the guy you call when everything goes wrong.
Exactly. So we've established that absolute uncompromising rigidity is exactly what's needed to win a cosmic war. But what happens when you bring that exact same wartime general energy into your living room?
It is invariably a recipe for domestic disaster.
Yeah, the exact traits that made the sun the perfect savior for the universe. His intense heat, his rigid authority, his unrelenting, blinding brightness make him a highly, highly problematic partner in a marriage.
To put it mildly.
Let's look at his domestic situation. The sun marries a woman named Sanya. She is the daughter of Vishvakarma, who is the celestial architect, the guy who literally builds the universe's infrastructure.
He's the master builder of the cosmos.
So they get married and they have 3 children together. And these are heavy-hitting kids. First, there is Vivasvat Manu, who becomes the great lawgiver.
Very important figure.
Then there is Yama, who is the messenger of death and the controller of longevity. And Yami, the daughter, who becomes the sacred river Yamuna.
A very distinguished, powerful family unit. On paper.
Right. On paper, it looks like the ultimate cosmic power couple. But the Puranic text tells us a very different story behind closed doors. Sanya, the wife, is absolutely miserable.
She is suffocating.
She is completely overwhelmed. The text states she was quite uncomfortable with the fiery nature of her lord, the sun. His brightness and consequent heat are also disconcerting.
Disconcerting.
Yeah, disconcerting.
It's the ancient author's polite way of saying she is being psychologically and physically roasted alive by her husband's proximity.
She is standing next to a nuclear reactor. The intensity is just too much. She is desperate to separate from him. But you can't just casually serve divorce papers to the center of the universe.
No, you really can't. He dictates reality.
So she devises what has to be one of the wildest, most science fiction escape plans in all of ancient mythology.
It is brilliant, but it speaks volumes about her sheer desperation.
Sanya literally creates a replica of herself from her own shadow. She uses her magical abilities to separate her shadow from her body and gives it physical form.
Just pulls it right off the ground.
Yeah. This shadow clone is named Chaya, which translates directly to shadow. Sanya tasks Chaya with an enormous responsibility. She tells her shadow to replace her, to look after the blindingly hot husband and to raise her 3 children.
A huge ask for a two-dimensional entity.
She swears Chaya to absolute secrecy, makes her promise never to tell the sun the truth, and then Sanya just flees. She runs away.
And Chaya, being a shadow, accepts the request. But she tells her creator that the secret will be safe only until she is faced with a situation where being cursed is imminent.
Ah, so there's a loophole.
That is her only caveat. She has a limit to her loyalty. She won't endure a cosmic curse for someone else's lie.
Okay, so the wife swaps herself out for a literal shadow, leaves, and the son doesn't notice. I have to admit, I was completely baffled by this when I read it.
It does seem a bit unbelievable at first glance.
How does the sun, the literal eye of the universe, the entity that illuminates everything, the all-seeing cosmic general, not realize that his wife of many years has been replaced by an absence of light?
It seems absurd, doesn't it? But it is a profound psychological observation by the sages.
I mean, I try to picture it. It reminds me of those stories you hear about a high-powered billionaire executive.
The ones who live at the office.
Exactly. The kind of person who is running a Fortune 500 company, managing thousands of employees, making billion-dollar deals. They are so blinded by their own brilliance, so consumed by their own importance in their career, that they come home and they literally do not notice that their spouse painted the living room neon green 3 weeks ago.
Because they aren't really looking.
Right. They are completely, totally oblivious to their own home life because it's just background noise to them.
That is exactly the dynamic. What the sages are showing us is the blinding nature of absolute authority. The text specifically notes, the sun is a separate planet. This trait of the sun owes itself to the seemingly unorthodox behavior of his beloved wife.
A separate planet.
He is so solitary in his power. When you are the absolute center, when everything revolves around you, you rarely look at the things revolving around you with any true nuance.
Because you assume everything is just there to serve your gravity.
Yes. He isn't looking at his wife to see her. He is looking at her to see if she is fulfilling her role. Chaya looks like Sanya. She makes the meals. She tends to the house.
She checks the boxes.
Exactly. For the sun, who is completely self-contained and focused outward on his cosmic duties, that's enough. He lacks the emotional granularity to tell the difference between his actual wife and a hollow echo of her.
That is incredibly sad when you think about it. It's a profound statement on how ego and absolute power create deep emotional isolation. He doesn't even know his own wife.
He doesn't know her at all.
And life just goes on. The deception works perfectly. Chaya totally takes over. She even gives birth to 2 more sons with the sun.
Yes, she gives birth to another Manu, who later authors the Manus Mirati, and Shani, who we know is the planet Saturn.
Wait. So the sun has kids with this shadow clone and still doesn't realize she's a clone.
Still doesn't realize. Because from his perspective, his authority is unquestioned, his household is running, and his needs are met. He has no reason to look closer. He is living in a solipsistic bubble of his own blinding light.
Wow. But a secret like that, a literal foundation built on a shadow, cannot hold forever. If the sun was too blinded by his own ego to see the deception, the truth was going to have to be forced into the open.
It was inevitable.
And how does the truth usually come out in a fractured family?
Through the kids. It is always the children who spot the cracks in the facade.
Always. The kids see everything.
They don't have the ego investments of the parents. They just observe behavior.
So here's how the unraveling happens. The son is oblivious, but eventually, even he notices something is a little off.
He catches a glimpse of the dysfunction.
The text says the son found it intriguing that his wife was discriminating between the children. She is lavishing love, attention, and resources on her own 2 biological sons, Manu and Shani. But she is completely ignoring and actively denying love to the elder 3 kids, Yama, Yami, and the first Manu who belonged to the original wife, Sanya.
Which is a very human, very flawed reaction from Chaya. She's a shadow. She lacks the depth of a full soul. She favors her own creations. And children intuitively deeply feel when they're being marginalized or treated unfairly.
Yama, the eldest son who is destined to become the Lord of Justice and Death, is not having it. He has an innate, uncompromising sense of what is right and wrong. He rebels against this unfair treatment. He confronts his mother.
And things escalate quickly.
They really do. Chaya, completely losing her temper, lashes out and actually curses Yama, her supposed son.
We have to remember that a curse in this mythology is not just a harsh word or a grounding. It's not sending him to his room.
Right.
It is a binding, terrifying reality. It alters your destiny. It has immense weight.
So Yama, terrified and deeply confused, runs to his father, the sun, and he presents the son with a deeply logical philosophical doubt. He essentially says, "Father, how is it logically possible for a true mother to curse her own child?
It's a great question.
A mother's love is supposed to be absolute. Even if I misbehave, a real mother might punish me, she might discipline me, but she would never use a destructive curse designed to permanently harm me."
I love this detail because Yama is using pure logic to pierce the sun's blinding ego. He is saying, look at the evidence, father, not your assumptions. The data doesn't match the title of mother.
The son hears this and it finally clicks. The logic is undeniable. He immediately annuls the curse on Yama, and then he turns his full, terrifying attention to Chaya.
And he is furious.
The great cosmic administrator realizes he has been played, manipulated in his own house. He angrily confronts Chaya, and this is where things get intensely physical. In a heated, violent argument, the son actually grabs Chaya, pulls her by the hair, and threatens to curse her with his full divine wrath.
Remember Chaya's original caveat to Senya?
Ah, right.
She promised she would keep the secret until she was faced with a situation where being cursed was imminent.
Boom! The trigger is pulled. Terrified by the raw, scorching power of the sun, Chaya breaks her vow. She blurts out the whole humiliating truth. She tells him she is just a shadow, a replacement, a fake, and that his real wife fled long ago because she simply couldn't stand to be near him.
The humiliation for the sun must be absolute. The commander who sees all the demons, the eye of the universe, couldn't see the deception in his own bed. It's a total collapse of his domestic reality.
Now, I have to stop here, because we must talk about a highly specific detail in the text that had me laughing out loud.
I know exactly what you're going to bring up.
It is so incredibly specific. The sages note that because the sun pulled his spouse's hair in this moment of domestic rage, ancient astrologers created a karmic warning.
Ah, yes. The translation of physical myth into astrological symptom.
The text literally says, do not pull the hair of your spouse or you would lose your own hair. It states that as a karmic result of this violence, the sun, as an astrological force, gives people scanty, thinning hair.
That's fantastic.
I mean, we are talking about the cosmic origins of male pattern baldness hidden inside a mythological domestic dispute.
It is humorous, but it is deeply indicative of how this multi-tiered system works. This goes back to what we discussed in the introduction. The sages use these vivid, memorable, almost shocking stories to codify astrological and behavioral rules.
The oral zip file in action.
Exactly. The gross physical action in the myth, the pulling of hair, translates to a subtle astrological meaning. If the sun is prominent in a certain way in your chart, it affects the crown of the head.
That's amazing. So how does the larger family drama, the wife fleeing the heat, translate to how the sun behaves as a planet in astrology? How did the sages map this psychology onto a natal chart?
This is where the brilliance of the system really shines. Think about the core action of the myth. The sun's intense, unyielding heat scorched his wife, driving her away.
Right.
He was so fiery, so dominating, that he destroyed the intimacy of his own relationship. Astrologically, the sages codified this into a fundamental rule. The sun is a separative planet.
Break that down for me. What does a separative planet actually mean for a person's life?
In a horoscope, your life is divided into 12 houses. The 7th house, for example, is the house of marriage, partnerships, and close business associations.
Okay.
It requires compromise, yielding, and mutual respect. If the sun sits in your 7th house, or heavily influences it, it brings that archetypal energy of my way or the highway. It brings scorching heat. It creates separation.
Because it's too intense.
Right. The person might be so focused on their own career, their own ego, their own need to be the center of the relationship that they burn away the connection. The partner feels unseen, just like Senya, and eventually creates distance or leaves entirely.
Because the sun takes up too much space. He's too hot to touch.
Precisely. Furthermore, the text asks a brilliant rhetorical question. Why would he not do the same to any planet that comes too near him? In astronomy and astrology, there is a phenomenon called combustion.
Combustion?
Yes. When any other planet, say Venus or Mercury, gets too close to the sun in the sky, it becomes combust. It disappears in the sun's blinding glare. Its individual power is neutralized or burned up by the sun's rays.
So if my Mercury, my communication, is too close to my sun, my ego burns up my ability to listen.
Exactly. Your ego overrides your intellect. The myth of Sangya fleeing is the mythological explanation for this astronomical and psychological phenomenon. The sun's fiery temperament demands a wide berth. If you get too close to absolute power, you get burned, or you get turned into a shadow of yourself, just like Chaya.
That is brilliant. The myth gives the math a personality. Remember, he is fiery, the text warns. He cannot help but be what he is, but this humiliating revelation forces a crisis.
It's a turning point.
He cannot remain oblivious anymore. His illusion of a perfect domestic life is totally shattered. He knows he's alone. And you might expect the sun, this proud, undefeated warrior, to just lash out, burn the world down in anger, or violently punish his father-in-law for his daughter's actions.
That would be the typical ego response.
But what happens next is actually really surprising. Instead of lashing out, he looks inward.
It is the beginning of a profound, painful transformation for him. It's the moment the ego cracks.
A furious, deeply annoyed, and likely heartbroken son storms over to his father-in-law, Vishvakarma, the celestial architect. He demands answers. Where is my real wife? Why did she do this? And Vishvakarma, who seems to be the only person in the universe brave enough to give the son straight, unfiltered feedback, sits him down and gives him some very necessary counsel.
He essentially acts as a cosmic marriage counselor. He provides the mirror the son has been avoiding.
He does. He tells the son the hard truth. He says, look, you are simply too scorching. You are too difficult to be borne by delicate maidens. Your heat is intolerable.
A tough pill to swallow for the son.
But then Vishvakarma pivots and offers this beautiful, empathetic reframing. He says, however, Sangyu's love for you was actually profound. She didn't leave because she hated you. She left her shadow behind specifically so you wouldn't be alone, so your physical needs would be met, so your children would be raised.
It recontextualizes her entire betrayal.
Exactly. He tells him she then changed herself into a mare, a horse, and fled to the far north, specifically because the north is cooler and your heat is less scorching there. She is protecting herself from being destroyed, but she hasn't abandoned her devotion to you.
It is a phenomenal moment of empathy being injected into the son's narrative. Up until this point, the son has only understood victory and dominance. Now he is finally forced to see the collateral damage of his own nature on someone he claims to love.
And it works. The text says the son is smitten with remorse. I love that phrasing. The ultimate authority figure feels genuine, heavy guilt. He realizes that his absolute unyielding power, the very thing that makes him a great king and a demon slayer, makes him a terrible husband.
It is the moment he realizes his greatest strength is simultaneously his greatest weakness.
I really want to frame this for you, the listener, as the ultimate working on yourself story arc. We talk a lot today about personal growth, going to therapy, doing the deep internal work to fix our attachment styles. Well, the son does the work, and he goes to the absolute extreme.
He doesn't just read a self-help book.
No. He doesn't just apologize. He allows Vishvakarma to literally change his fundamental nature.
The celestial facelift. A structural alteration of the ego.
Vishvakarma puts the sun on his cosmic lathe. He physically grinds away the harsh, blinding, unbearable white heat. The text says his face was made round and beautiful. He acquires an attractive, glowing red complexion. He softens his edges.
I want to highlight the mechanics of this. He allows his ego to be diminished so he can exist in a reciprocal relationship. He sacrifices a portion of his raw, autonomous power for the sake of connection. He allows himself to be vulnerable on the lathe.
And his effort doesn't stop there. Once he is softened, he doesn't just sit on his throne and demand Sangya come back now that he looks better. He goes to her.
He meets her where she is.
He transforms himself into a horse to match the equine form she took in her exile. He travels to the cold north, leaving his comfortable, fiery center. He meets her on her terms. He woos her. He wins her back.
That is the crucial part of the psychology here. He changes his shape to be compatible with hers, rather than demanding she endure his natural state.
And they are reunited. And from this new, balanced, mutually respectful union where he isn't just burning her alive but engaging with her, they beget 2 new children, the Ashvini Kumars.
This is where the symbolism becomes incredibly deep and deeply relevant to our everyday lives. Do you know who the Ashvini Kumars are in this mythology?
The text tells us they are the celestial physicians. They control illnesses and promote healthy growth. But wait, let me make sure I'm fully connecting the dots here because this is mind-blowing.
Lay it out.
The children born from the unbalanced, toxic, scorching relationship were Yama, the lord of Depshani, the lord of karma and limitation, and a rigid lawgiver. They represent structure, consequence, and ending.
Yes.
But the children born from a healed, balanced, self-aware relationship are healers.
Exactly. You've hit the profound philosophical core of this myth. The saints are telling us that true healing, both physical and spiritual health, which the text explicitly links to the sun's strength in a well-aspected horoscope, arises only when the ego is tempered.
Wow.
When raw, scorching power is softened by self-awareness, remorse, and empathy, the result is the capacity to heal and promote growth. Soundness of physical and spiritual health requires a balanced internal sun. You cannot heal yourself, and you certainly cannot heal others if you are constantly burning everything around you to the ground to assert your dominance.
That is it's a staggering insight into human nature. To be a true source of life, the sun had to learn how not to destroy it first. He had to undergo physical and character softening to become a suitable partner and a true healer.
The beautiful resolution.
It really is a beautiful resolution to his domestic trauma. But, as we know, the sun is not just a husband. He's the cosmic eye. He has a day job on a universal scale.
Yes. His domestic life is sordid, but his unwavering commitment to duty out in the universe is about to create an enemy that will literally haunt him until the end of time.
Which brings us crashing back into his professional life and the origin of eclipses. Because while he learned compromise at home, out in the cosmos, he operates on absolute truth, and that truth makes him a massive target.
This is one of the most famous, consequential, and heavily analyzed myths in all of Vedic astrology. The enmity between the sun and Rahu.
Let's set the scene for this epic confrontation. We are at the Sagarmanthan, which is the great churning of the cosmic ocean. This is a massive, unprecedented joint venture between the gods and the demons.
A very rare truce.
They have called a temporary truce to churn the ocean and extract Amrita, the nectar of immortality. It is the ultimate prize in the universe.
Whoever drinks the Amrita lives forever, free from disease, old age, and death, essentially ensuring they will rule the cosmos. The stakes literally couldn't be higher.
And after immense effort, the Amrita has finally been produced. But there's an immediate problem. The demons, predictably, betray the truce. They want it all for themselves.
Naturally.
So Lord Vishnu, the preserver of the universe, intervenes to maintain the balance. He disguises himself as Mohini, this unbelievably bewitching, intoxicatingly beautiful enchantress. Her job is to distract the demons with her beauty and distribute the nectar exclusively to the gods.
It is a cosmic sleight of hand. The demons, driven by their lower desires and their ego, are completely deluded by Mohini's physical form.
You don't even see the trick.
No, they sit there mesmerized, waiting their turn, completely missing the fact that she is strategically only serving the gods. They are blinded by illusion.
But there is always one guy who doesn't fall for the trick. One demon, named Swarbanu, is too wily, too observant, and deeply secretive. He sees right through Vishnu's illusion. He realizes the demons are being played.
He's the outlier.
So he decides to pull off a disguise of his own. He shapeshifts, takes the form of a radiant god, and casually slips into the seating arrangement sitting right between the sun and the moon.
Look at that strategic placement. He places himself between the two great luminaries, the two eyes of the sky. He thinks he can hide in the brightest spot.
And it almost works. Mohini is coming down the line, distributing the nectar. She reaches Swarbanu in his disguise, and she actually pours the Amrita into his hands. But right at that very millisecond, the sun and the moon look over.
The light of truth hits him.
And their piercing light strips away his disguise. They see him for what he truly is. And they immediately act as cosmic whistleblowers. They point him out, shouting, "Hey, that's a demon! He's stealing the nectar!"
Now, I want to pause here and address why it had to be the sun who spotted him. This isn't random.
It never is in these texts.
The sun represents the archetypal energy of absolute illumination. In human psychology, strong solar energy is the inability to tolerate shadows, lies, or deception. The sun's very nature is to reveal what is hidden. When a lie is sitting right next to the sun, the light of truth automatically burns away the disguise. He didn't have to investigate. His mere presence exposed the fraud.
He is the ultimate lie detector, and the reaction to his whistleblowing is instantaneous. Mohini, realizing the breach, drops the illusion, pulls out Vishnu's cosmic weapon, the Sudarshana chakra, and with one swift blow, cleanly beheads the demon Swarbanu.
But the mechanics of immortality are strict.
The drops of Amrita had already gone past his lips and down his throat, so while his body is severed in half, he does not die. He achieves a twisted, fragmented, horrifying immortality.
A living nightmare.
The severed head, which tasted the nectar, becomes immortal and is known as Rahu. The decapitated body, which was also immortalized by proximity to the nectar, becomes Ketu.
Two shadow entities born from deception and violence, forever severed from wholeness. They become the north and south nodes of the moon in astronomy.
And Rahu, this immortal, floating, severed head, holds a massive, burning, eternal grudge. He has lost his body, he has been humiliated in front of the entire cosmos, and he blames exactly two people. The sun and the moon, the whistleblowers.
He vows revenge.
So what does he do with his immortal life? The text says Rahu devours the sun every now and then. He literally stalks the sun through the sky and swallows him. And because he has no body, the sun eventually escapes out the bottom of the severed neck. But for those few terrifying minutes, the world goes dark.
The sage's mythological explanation for the mathematical reality of a solar eclipse.
I have to point out the absolute bitter irony of this situation. The sun did exactly what he was supposed to do. He is the administrator, he is the light of truth, he is the protector of the gods. He saw a cosmic crime happening, he reported it, he saved the universe from an immortal demon overlord. And yet, no good deed goes unpunished.
It really does.
He is the one who suffers the eternal consequence. He is the one who gets devoured.
This raises a profoundly important point about the burden of duty and leadership. The text explicitly states, the act done by him was to the benefit of all the gods, but the consequences are his alone. This is why, in astrology, the sun and Rahu are considered bitter, mortal enemies.
An eclipse combination.
Yes. When they sit together in a birth chart, it represents a lifelong psychological struggle within that person between absolute truth, the sun, and absolute deception, or unorthodox ambition, Rahu.
It's exactly like a whistleblower in a massive corporate scandal or a corrupt government. They see the fraud, they do the right thing, they speak up, and they save the public. But what happens to them?
They get destroyed.
Their own career is destroyed. They face years of legal battles. They are dragged through the mud and targeted forever, while everyone else, the people they saved, just moves on with their lives.
A perfect parallel. The sun operates on absolute truth and duty regardless of the personal cost. He doesn't calculate the political fallout, he doesn't weigh the optics, he just illuminates what is there. And in a universe, or a corporate boardroom, where deception often gets you ahead, telling the unvarnished truth makes you a massive target. He takes the hit so the system can survive. It showcases the immense, often intensely lonely burden of holding ultimate responsibility.
But that burden, that constant, unending pressure of being the target, of always having to be the shining light of truth while literally getting swallowed by a demonic shadow, it takes a toll.
It would break anyone.
Even a god. Eventually, being the sole bearer of consequences pushes even the sun to his breaking point.
Every system, no matter how powerful or divine, has a stress limit, a point of catastrophic failure.
Let's look at the aftermath of an eclipse. The sun has just been swallowed by a giant severed head. He's tumbled out the bloody neck. He's back in the sky trying to shine. And he is incredibly annoyed, not just at Rahu, but at the other gods.
The very people he saved, the ones who are safely enjoying their immortality.
Right. He looks around and says, "Are you kidding me? I stuck my neck out for you. I exposed the demon so you all could have the nectar. What do I get? I get stalked through the cosmos by a head.
And none of you are helping me.
None of you are helping me bear this burden. None of you are stepping up." The injustice of it completely overwhelms him.
It is a moment of profound cosmic burnout. The resentment has boiled over.
So, in his anger and his immense frustration, he essentially throws a cosmic tantrum. He decides, you know what, if I have to do this alone, if I have to bear the brunt of reality, I'm going to do it my way. He drops all his carefully maintained restraints. He stops trying to moderate himself for the benefit of the ungrateful world.
He just lets go.
He begins to shine with such dazzling, scorching, unbridled brightness that the temperature of the entire universe spikes. The text says it looked as if the world would be reduced to cinders. He is literally going to burn the cosmos down in his righteous rage.
He is basically saying, you want the truth. You want the sun. Here is the sun, completely unfiltered. Let's see if you can survive it.
I want you, the listener, to really imagine that. Imagine the sun just deciding to quit his restraint. We completely take for granted that the sun gives us exactly enough heat to live, to grow crops, but not enough to fry us. This myth highlights how incredibly fragile the balance of our universe and the balance of any powerful leadership structure actually is. It is hanging by a thread of divine self-control.
It is a terrifying display of raw power detached from purpose. When a leader burns out, they often scorch the earth around them.
The gods are absolutely terrified. They realize they pushed him too far, that their complacency caused this. They are about to become ash. So they run panicking to Brahma, the creator, begging for a solution. And Brahma, being the ultimate architect of the system, knows you cannot just turn the sun off. You cannot fire the core of your organization. You have to manage him.
You cannot suppress the sun's energy, but you can and must channel it.
Brahma advises them to seek out Aruna. Now, Aruna is another son of sage Kashyapa, which makes him the sun's half-brother. But Aruna is different. Brahma advises that Aruna be placed as the charioteer to the sun.
And this is a very specific, deeply strategic placement. Aruna isn't meant to fight the sun. He is meant to sit in front of him.
Aruna takes the reins. He sits in front of the sun, driving the cosmic chariot. And the text says he skillfully drove the chariot that the world escaped being reduced to ashes. Aruna acts as a physical and energetic buffer. He absorbs the sheer brunt of the scorching tantrum, diffusing the heat so that by the time the light reaches the earth, it is warm and nourishing, not incinerating.
If we connect this back to astrological and psychological principles, the text makes a profound statement here. The authors note, the sun needs a benefic association to be fruitful in any house. By itself, its fiery temperament is generally ruinous to the house.
This concept blew my mind. The idea that absolute power, even when it is completely righteous and necessary, cannot exist in a vacuum. Why does the ultimate authority require an intermediary to be useful?
Because raw, unfiltered power is inherently destructive, even if its intentions are good. Think of electricity. A lightning bolt is immense, pure power, but it destroys whatever it hits. To be useful, to light a city or power a hospital, that raw power has to be stepped down through transformers. It has to be buffered and channeled through insulated wires.
That's a great way to look at it.
The sun's raw truth and authority are like that lightning bolt. Aruna is the transformer. Without a buffer, without a mediating force, whether that's a trusted group of advisors, skilled diplomats, a PR department, or just a deep sense of internal psychological moderation, the leader will inevitably burn out their own organization. The sun cannot exist in isolation. His power must be steered to nourish rather than destroy.
He needs a team to save him from his own intensity. Aruna isn't weakening the sun, he's making the sun viable. He's translating the sun's rage into light.
Exactly. He makes the sun's immense, terrifying potential actually fruitful for the world.
This realization leads us beautifully into our final synthesis. We have traced this incredible, sweeping arc from the drafted wartime fixer to the oblivious husband of a shadow, to the remorseful partner on the celestial lathe, to the lone whistleblower, and finally to the burnout who learns to accept a buffer. Bringing all these massive ancient myths together, what do they ultimately tell us about the nature of the sun in our lives, our psychology, and our universe?
They tell us that greatness is a deeply complex, structurally isolated, and often painful burden.
Let's look at his legacy, which the text emphasizes is vast,
Yeah.
primarily through his children. His offspring literally structure reality. We have Manu, the great lawgiver who gave the rules that govern human society.
The foundation of order.
We have Shani, Saturn, who controls the span of our lives, delivers our karma, and enforces boundaries. And we have Yama, who the text describes beautifully, not just as the terrifying lord of death, but as the messenger who times our move, our change from one life form to another, or for the spiritual few, the final emancipation.
The sun's children are the pillars of time, law, limitation, and consequence.
Yeah.
They are the scaffolding of existence.
And the sun himself. He is the ultimate timer. He dictates the rhythm of reality. He causes day and night. He turns the seasons. He times the sowing of grains. As the text explicitly states, he is the one who nourishes the world. But to do all this, to be the unmoving center around which everything else turns, he has to accept a fundamental, unchangeable reality about himself.
The reality of structural isolation.
The text quotes a verse from the Taittiriya Samhita, an incredibly ancient, profound scripture. The question is asked, who moves alone? And the answer is definitively given. The sun moves alone.
It's a statement that echoes through the entire text. It is the defining characteristic of this entity and of anyone who embodies this archetype.
When I first read that the sun moves alone, I thought, well, that's incredibly sad. It sounds like a tragedy. The guy who gives light to everything, who saves the gods, gets swallowed by demons and ends up alone. But the more we've talked about it and looking at the text analysis, the more I realize it's a brilliant reframing of the lonely at the top narrative. It isn't a punishment for his behavior. It's a structural necessity.
It is the absolute architecture of authority. The text elaborates on this brilliantly. It says, the sun's steadfastness, authority, and dignity are all encompassed by his aloofness.
Aloofness as a feature, not a bug.
Let that concept sink in. His dignity requires aloofness. The text continues. He who has to achieve the highest position of necessity has to toil alone. Authority is to be exercised singly. There are no joint ventures.
There are no joint ventures at the absolute top. That is a heavy truth. You can have advisors like Aruna buffering you. You can have a healed, respectful relationship like he found with Sanya in the cool north. But when it comes to the core function of holding the universe together, of making the final hard call, you are singular. You are alone.
Think about the mechanics of a solar system. If the sun were easily influenced, if he were swayed by the emotional changing tides of the moon, or the quick, erratic intellect of Mercury, or the expanding optimism of Jupiter, he wouldn't be reliable. he would wobble.
And if the center wobbles, the system collapses.
Exactly. We need the sun to rise exactly when it's supposed to every single day, regardless of how he feels, regardless of who is angry with him, regardless of eclipses and shadow clones. That ultimate reliability demands distance.
It demands distance. The entire mythological arc we just explored, learning when his unchecked heat was destroying his marriage, fighting the demons to establish order, bearing the immortal grudge of Rahu, learning to accept a charioteer to translate his rage into warmth, all of it was preparation. It was the forging of his character for this solitary, eternal duty. He had to learn who he was and what his flaws were so he could stand alone in the center without burning himself or us to ash.
He is the solitary king. And his aloofness is not a lack of love for the universe. It is the ultimate expression of his love, because it is the gravity that keeps the universe alive.
That is a profoundly moving way to look at it. The aloofness is the gravity. Okay, we have covered an immense amount of conceptual ground today. Let me do a quick recap for you, our listener, to bring this epic journey home. We started by unzipping the ancient file, seeing Aditya drafted as the ultimate, uncompromising warrior and administrator, bringing necessary cruelty to fix a broken cosmos. We then watched him fail spectacularly in his personal life, so blinded by his own brilliant ego that he couldn't see he was married to a shadow clone named Chaya.
We saw the painful, humiliating revelation of that truth, leading not to more anger, but to deep remorse. We saw him surrender his ego to the celestial lathe, undergoing a cosmic makeover to win back his true wife, Sanya, and bringing the healing energy of the Ashvini Kumars into the world.
We witnessed him stand up for absolute truth during the churning of the ocean, exposing the demons for Banu, and earning the eternal, eclipsing enmity of Rahu as his lonely reward. And we saw him reach his breaking point, throwing a scorching tantrum that required the buffer of his charioteer Aruna, teaching us that raw power must be steered to be useful. And finally, we arrived at the solitary king, understanding that his ultimate legacy, nourishing the world and structuring time, requires him to move alone.
It is a complete, multi-layered masterclass in the psychology of leadership, ego, and authority, perfectly codified in myth.
It really is. Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, our listener, with a final provocative thought. Something to chew on as you go about your day. We've seen that the sun is the center of everything, the ultimate source of light and authority. Yet to keep his family close and to avoid destroying the world he was meant to protect, he had to recognize his own toxic traits. He had to confront his scorching nature and learn to accept a buffer. He had to realize his brilliant light could blind as easily as it could guide.
He had to develop deep self-awareness to survive his own power.
Exactly. So here is the question for you. If the sun himself, the literal, unquestioned center of the universe, had to confront the uncomfortable fact that his greatest strength was also his most damaging blind spot, where in your own life might your brilliance, your drive, or your intensity be unintentionally scorching the people closest to you? Who in your life is acting as your Aruna, buffering your heat so you don't burn your world down, and are you acknowledging them?
A powerful, necessary question to carry forward.
Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible deep dive into the celestial delivery boy transit and into the complex, beautiful heart of the sun. We appreciate your time, your curiosity, and we wish you well until our next exploration.